Okay, getting started with dimensions. Key characteristics that we need to pay attention to when using the dimension tool. There are several different ways to apply dimensions. The one thing I want to reiterate is the fact that dimensions should be applied to provide all the necessary information about an object without becoming redundant and stating something in more than one place and cluttering up your entire drawing with dimensions. So in this case, we're going to do some linear dimensions. Angular dimensions are one of the other options, but we're going to get started with linear dimensions at the top of the toolbar and start tagging some of the size and shape of this object. Again, we do not want to become redundant. So if I state the overall length of this object in a given view, for instance, I state that this is 7 inches right in the middle of my my scene here. I do not want to state anything else that communicates the same value. So in this case, 4 and 3 is another 7. So again, these are redundant. If we have the total length somewhere, we do not need it somewhere else. So therefore, we could eliminate one of these values. So again, you can easily subtract and determine that this is a 3-inch long surface based on the shape of this object. So again, we do not want to become redundant when we apply these. And we also do not want our dimension lines or extension lines for our dimensions to touch or to overrun or sit on top of any object lines. So you can see that these sit back nicely away from the actual object. I often see, common mistake that I often see is someone trying to tag the size of a circle. So in this case, we know it's a 1-inch diameter, but you cannot run your I do not want you to run your dimension lines over top of your object lines. Okay, this is not an effective way to dimension this circle. There are plenty of other opportunities to dimension this circle. You could do the radius or diameter in your front or right side view. This allows you to click directly on those points and to pull out those dimensions, which is drawing me to the next point I wish to make. When you've created these, all of the lines that are currently on your layout page, you need to understand where they came from. The first clicks that I've made up here for the diameter of this circle, these lines were created in SketchUp. They have also been scaled when they came to layout. But the units you're seeing displayed are associated with the size stated in SketchUp because they are SketchUp lines. The lines that we've created down in this right side view are both hidden lines created in layout. This is in reference to the spacing between those lines on your piece of paper. So you can see that I have a 1/2-inch diameter and a 1-inch diameter for this object based on the scale factor that I used for this object. So this is a half size. The scale is currently 1/2 size, the original in SketchUp, and therefore the units that we're seeing is also 1/2 size. And again, we need to make sure that we are accounting for any dimensional issues by simply double-clicking and actually a whole bunch of clicks there to get back the accurate dimensions into or on the page. So again, this is a 1-inch diameter and it needs to be written as such. If you're referencing any of the hidden lines, if you're referencing any of the center lines which were created in layout, the dimensions will be incorrect and you need to go back and correct them. Now, there's many ways to accurately dimension this drawing, and that's the challenge. Can you apply your dimensions accurately, and can you tell all the necessary information without becoming redundant? That's what you're here to work on, and that's the remainder of your assignment. Hopefully you can use what I've given you so far with the applying of the dimensions and understanding of that to accurately do so. What I would like to show now is also how we can format these dimensions to look a little better for the types of drawing we're dealing with. I would consider this more of a mechanical drawing than architectural, and therefore I want to change the types of dimensions or the way these dimensions look. So a few things that I'm going to ask that you do is first add arrows to the ends instead of these architectural ticks at the end of our lines. So you can see that the arrowheads were just added. These arrowheads, I think for an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, are a little large. I'm going to bring them down to a 2-point arrowhead. And you can see that the arrow's nice and clean, small arrowheads at the end. And what I would also like to do is, with that dimension selected, is also click the second tab over that allows these dimensions to fit in between those lines. So my dimension line, my number sits nice and cleanly in between them now. This is how I'd like to see most of our dimensions created. And if you go and set these, create these settings before you create any of your lines, you can also avoid having to go back and edit them afterwards. So in this case, that 7-inch line I did after the fact. Now if I click it before I do this, I can have all of my dimension lines actually created with those standards. So I'm going to set these to 2. So whether you did this and you're editing it later or you're setting it up and just about to start dimensioning, if you do it with these settings, your dimensions will look better. One final note in the creation of dimensions, in this case the height of this object, your dimensions should all be in line with one another. All right, unless they're nested and there's more than one dimension pulled out on top, I would make sure that you have all of your dimensions in line with one another. A nested dimension would have to be a larger dimension pulled out and on top of, and in this case it passes through the dimensions underneath it, which I do not recommend doing this either. I would rather see, let's get rid of this one and nest all of them. If I'm going to nest one, why not nest all? And now I can see how these dimensions are stacked moving outwards. So that way the lines don't interfere with one another and you get a nice clean edge here with our reference lines. So again, a few things to be aware of and to start applying to your dimensions.